Do, 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 do. All right. So we're up and running. Good day, good evening. Hello, everybody, my good friends. I know that uh, it is not the most pleasant of temperatures, and I am grateful for all of you who have joined us this morning. Being that we are not at the church property, and I'm not coming from worship inside the sanctuary. I thought I would wear my festive attire and join all the rest of you in your casual comfort from home festive attire. And we'll say, Go Patriots, who will be playing in the AFC Championship game later today, for which I am very grateful and excited. So, hope you all are here. Reminder, we are recording on the YouTube, so things are live. And if you want to turn your camera off, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you may leave it on. Let's go through and do some introductions. And we're going to do this by what I call mutual invitation. I will start off. And after I introduce myself and answer the one word, what subject did you dread the most in school? When I'm done, I will invite someone else. When you're done, you invite someone else. So, Kitty, I'm coming to you first, just so you know, after me. Hello, everybody. My name is Josh Robinson, and I think the subject that I dreaded the most uh, would be chemistry. And my son's in chemistry right now, and he has the gene that I did not have, which is I don't know how he's made it through half a year of chemistry and has a 99 average. I don't understand that because that does not track with him, and it does not come from my genes nor my wife's genes. My wife and I talked about it over Christmas, and we feel like she and I both got the pity pass on chemistry. I hated every minute of it, and I don't know how he's doing so well. So, with that, I invite Kitty, and Kitty, go from there. You're muted. There you go. Almost. So close. There you go.
I was going to say, my grandson gets that from me. I'm Kitty.
Let me pause there for a second, Kitty. By the way, for those of you who are new, Susan, Ken, Linda, Kitty is my mother, who lives in Garland, Texas, which is why she mentioned the grandson gets it from her. There you go. Go ahead, Kitty.
My dreaded subject was physics. Marcelo.
Hi, I'm Marcelo, and my dreaded subject was probably math because I had a teacher who only showed up for 3 class periods the entire year. Let's go with Joe.
I'm Joe, and I guess my dreaded subject was English.
Joe, pick somebody.
Whoever, all I can see is you at this point.
All right, Carla.
I am Carla Young, and my dreaded subject was probably political science, which is funny now because I love all that stuff. But when I was in high school, I hated it. Oh, let me pick Kathy Roberts.
Well, I'll have to say, yeah, Kathy Roberts. I didn't have any dreaded subjects in high school, but when I got to college freshman year, I was in over my head in Latin because I hadn't had adequate preparation. So I got through one semester and then I moved on to a humanities class.
Carol.
Okay.
Did you say me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear it. Carol Lowe. I don't know that there was a dreaded class, but I dreaded any of them that made me get up and give a report or say something in front of the class. So I dreaded that part, which is funny because now I don't shut up. So anyway, Marie.
Marie, and mine was definitely PE. Michelle.
Michelle, and I think mine was either history or French. I don't know anything about either one. Let's see. Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan. I love school. Having a hard time finding a subject I dreaded, but when I was a junior in a very competitive high school in Houston, I was in an AP math class with a bunch of National Merit Scholars. I was not a National Merit Scholar, and it did not come as fast for me as it did those kids. So I guess that was the class I remember dreading the most.
Go with
Let's see.
Linda and
How
Ken.
about Ken?
Yeah, I'm Ken. My most dreaded subject was Algebra 2 because I had been so oblivious during Algebra 1 that I didn't retain any of it. So I was lost. Linda.
In elementary school, it was math because I got the wrong answer once and my teacher hit me with a ruler, and that just made me terrified of math. And in college, it was computer science. So let's see who hasn't gone. Joan, have you gone?
Well, I'm Joan, and I adored school, except at least in high school since I was in marching band, I didn't have to do PE anymore. So the subject I dreaded the most was PE because I am not athletic. I love watching sports. I love playing them for fun. I made an 88 in PE every 6 weeks only because I got a 100 on the written test.
Right. Good. Thank you all. And I don't think we got everybody. Yep, I think we heard from everybody. Wonderful. So as you know, we had to do some shifting. We had to shift from having a guest speaker to what I'm calling the laboratory. And we've had to shift from the laboratory to we're still doing laboratory, but being online, and all of us connected via Zoom this day. And even since I sent you the email the other day, the already crazy world in which we live has have provided more for us to pray for. Let's just put it that way. And I don't want to miss an opportunity for us to care for one another with regard to the events that have unfolded this weekend. And so I do want us to engage in our outline for today, but I also want to provide a space for us to navigate whatever may be on your heart. With that being said, we're going to do that towards the end of our time together, where I carve out some space for us to be real with each other. I will turn the live stream YouTube off at that point, and it'll just be us on Zoom. For any of you who want to participate and just doing a kind of a soul dump, we'll make some space to do that at the end of our time together. Are there any questions about that? Does that sound favorable? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb sideways? All right, whatever that may be. Okay. I also don't exactly fully know how we're going to navigate through a wide, huge volume of mission laboratory show and tell. what I tried to do, one, was to send everything to you in advance for those of you who are go-getters and always did your homework in advance. I tried to also frame this in a way that was fun through 3 different exercises. So we had one exercise called the textbook detectives, another one which is spot the differences, and then finally I put forward a scavenger hunt of sorts for you to explore. And throughout all of this, I want to spend a little bit of time on each one of the 3, and then have a larger conversation, and we can jump from any one of those as we want to go. My main point is again, in show and tell, is that you all had an opportunity to engage in these items that are influences or tools or levers of power or Christian nationalism that is real, that is not mythological, but that is at work today in the state in which we live, and the children that are our neighbors and the children of our schools. So to begin, let's take a look at, before I begin part 1, we need to pray. Let's pray. Gracious God, Creator God, you have called us to love our neighbors and to seek justice. As we begin this day, give us courage to ask hard questions and give us grace to listen well. Amen. Let's take a look at part 1, examining curriculum and practice. So again, forgive me if I'm reading some of the script that I've already sent you in advance. I don't normally send you the full thing, but I wanted you and the rest of the participants who aren't with us this morning to be able to get through that. I want us to look at the instructional materials that have been approved for use in Texas public schools, and to ask what they reveal about the formation, authority, and belonging. These examples that I provided you come from Bluebonnet Learning instructional materials approved by the TEA that have been piloted in a variety of districts around the state for the last couple of years, and are manifestly available for districts to use. There are some, I want to give a little bit more unwritten background when it comes to the Texas Bluebonnet and the Bluebonnet curriculum, and try to reveal to you a little bit about why this is such an influential tool and of power in the state of Texas, specifically about this curriculum. The writers, the originators, the proprietors, the people who put this curriculum together, and through the TEA as it is now, provide this material for all districts across the state. I gave you a hyperlink in the handout there that you yourself can go straight to the portal where the PDF for every unit, every lesson of all of the Bluebonnet curriculum is available for you to download for free. There's no login required. You don't need a portal it's there for you for free. What TEA would say, and specifically when I'm saying TEA, I'm going to talk about its current commissioner, Mike Morath, who I sat through a presentation that he gave on this curriculum. So as I say TEA, know that I'm talking about Mike Morath. And some of the advantages that he highlighted to this curriculum as for Texans is that all parents who have kids in public school can go and see exactly what their students are being taught. That I know that it sometimes is incredibly difficult for me to find out and to read for myself the curriculum that is being taught to my son. And this is full transparency. Here it is. Everyone has access to it. There are some aspects of the Bluebonnet curriculum that make it very teacher friendly. A lot of the feedback from teachers who have used it have commented that, wow, this really is plug and play. And I can click this button and it sends out an email to parents and, and tells them exactly what we're doing in this lesson or this unit. And everything's transparent. One of the other advantages that TEA has said about this curriculum is that it is provided at no cost to school districts. It's been written, it's published, there it is. You can use the PDFs. If you're homeschooling your kid, guess what? You can use the curriculum. If you want to have printed copies of that curriculum, there is a printing cost that districts can pay to have the printed copies of those units printed and mailed to the district. But overall, for a district, if they are embracing this curriculum and getting the printed material for the teachers, the curriculum expense for districts is significantly less than most districts pay from either other vendors that are available nationwide, or B, through curriculum that these districts may write in-house. For Leander ISD and for Round Rock ISD, they have a whole department of curriculum experts who either are writing it or they are purchasing this curriculum from vendors that are nationwide. And some of the pressure that is being applied to districts to embrace the Bluebonnet curriculum is, one, the affordability, and that you could almost cut in half the amount that you're spending on curriculum, if not greater than half. Two, what I anticipate will come to be, and if it isn't already or in the year ahead, is that districts who use the Bluebonnet curriculum, that funding for public education is going to be tied to districts who are using the Bluebonnet curriculum. Does that make sense? So if you are a district that is not using it, like Leander or Round Rock ISD, you will not have access to state funding. This is a lever of power to ensure that we're using this curriculum, which we're going to get into some of the details about, that is specifically heavily bent towards the Christian tradition and a plethora of Bible studies that have not been there in existence prior. I want to take a second and ask Ken, and Ken, I know you're on mute. Did I do fair? Did I present that fairly to your knowledge?
Yes. And I would add to that this is, it may not seem like a big deal for TEA to be involved in curriculum development at all, but it is. This is an enormous departure from their traditional role as a state agency. And it's new. They've never done this before. They have traditionally would issue guidelines and requirements and objectives, very, very detailed objectives. But then it was up to publishers and local districts who could afford curriculum and instruction departments to develop the curriculum themselves. That step from their traditional role to actual full curriculum development is very significant and scary.
Thank you.
So much for local control, huh? That was, you know,
Yeah.
they've stopped beating that drum.
Yeah, thank you. Two other things I want to mention before we actually start to look at this curriculum is, as this is the official curriculum for the state of Texas, this is the only curriculum that is permitted to be taught in teacher education programs that receive state funding. And so what I don't know is about private institutions who do teacher education. I don't know whether or not those are required to teach the Bluebonnet, but certainly any teacher education programs in Texas that receive state funding. As of today, now this is the only curriculum they're allowed to teach. And then two, we were talking about the Texas Education Agency, but another part that is still significantly tied to that is the State Board of Education and who is serving on the State Board of Education, as they are also the ones who are writing curriculum and have an influence on how curriculum is being written. And I want to encourage you to think about staying as tightly connected to the movement of State Board Education as possible. One of the persons who has been appointed to serve on that is someone who has been historically noted as a Christian nationalist influencer for decades, is someone who has been discredited academically for decades, and is a very intentional reason why this person is there, and is to support this overall movement of education, public education in Texas. So I do want to encourage you to be as close, to pay close attention to that. As we're pivoting now,
Josh, if I could interject just one
Please.
comment about that the TEA and the State Board of Education by themselves do not control higher ed. They have no direct authority over higher education. That's controlled by the Higher Education Coordinating Board. But what this means, what you just said, means is that there is now a tight connection and complicity among the state board, the TEA, and the Higher Education Coordinating Board. That's really, really scary.
That is helpful information that's new information for me, and I appreciate you telling me that. I will spend some time trying to look at the Higher Education Coordinating Board and that triad that you're describing, and trying to pay particular attention to that. I appreciate you saying that. I'll make a note of that. As we pivot now to our textbook detective, what I provided you in that singular PDF was what do they call it? A flight of curriculum. Yes, I know that I cherry picked out some lessons, ones that are particular to us as Christian disciples in a Christian formation Sunday school class. I did not provide a lot of samples or any samples about civic religion, what I would call civic religion, and the elevation of a patriotism. And there's definitely plenty of those lessons. So I do acknowledge that. But in just the few lessons that I have provided, I hope that part of what you could see there is already an elevation of Bible stories that are not current, that have not been currently there. I think the idea, and certainly not at a level where you could easily analyze from one district to another. And so I want us to be mindful about that. As we look, one of the things I wanted y'all to do was to hone in on one or two lessons, read through them. These are all teacher editions. Take notes on what you see, and to kind of look at specific words, images, or framing choices that curriculum is putting out there. And I put you down to 3 questions. What is being formed? What values, assumptions, or understandings about the world are being shaped through this lesson? Who holds authority? Who is presented as the source of truth and moral guidance in the material? And consider whose voices are centered and whose perspectives are absent, and who belongs. If you were a student or a family from a different religious or cultural background, how might you experience this lesson over time? What signals of inclusion or exclusion do you notice? So, as some of you may have already been textbook detectives, and if you have, this is your time to unmute and show and tell. What did you see? And if you do, I have the PDF here. I can share my screen, but you'll need to tell me what lesson that you're looking at. Did anybody do any homework in advance on this? Go ahead, Marie.
So I read the Good Samaritan one in the kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I thought the lesson itself, I think teaching what the Good Samaritan means is valuable in elementary school for a couple of reasons. One is that it's a commonly used term. It's in the law. There are Good Samaritan laws that protect people who do CPR or people who stop by the side of the road and that kind of stuff. And I also think illustrating that who a neighbor is, it's not just somebody who's like you, is a good thing. I thought it sounded, it read a little advanced for kindergarten. I may be a little biased. I would have thought that might have been more suitable for 2nd or 3rd grade, when you might run into that kind of stuff. But that, to me, it was an example of a concept from the New Testament that probably should be taught in public schools because it is part of the public vernacular.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there is this idea about the Good Samaritan law that we've embraced for decades. So there's nothing abnormal or strange. It is actually making that association between what we hear commonly embraced in society, and where that came from, the root of where that came from. It's hard to say that there's an issue with that. And as you look at that lesson, it does say, hey, well, the Christian Bible isn't like the only one that has this idea of do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That golden rule tries to pull in some snippets from other faith traditions as well. But it's the Good Samaritan, which maybe you're right with regard to age appropriateness. There's a recall here. Remember the story of the golden rule we read about, love your neighbor as yourself. And it talks about how it instructs the teachers to talk about this man named Jesus coming from the Christian Bible, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Explaining, this is a Samaritan. A Samaritan is a person from Samaria. Samaritans were a part of a different group, etc. Judeans. Man, I promise y'all, sometimes this is hard enough to explain to adults in Bible study. So I think Marie's point about age appropriateness for kindergarten, man, like my wife's a kindergarten teacher. I have not talked to her about this lesson. It's a sore subject. I don't bring it up. Do unto others is not a sore subject. The idea of blueprint curriculum, that can be a little bit of a sore subject. And so I'm mindful about that with her. But good. What else? Were there other lessons or from the PDF, from the handout I sent you with the different lessons? Were there any that y'all want me to jump to or look at?
I looked specifically at the Golden Rule one, and I liked that they brought in the Golden Rule from how it's stated from the other religions. But once again, like Marie said, I felt this was too high level for kindergarten. I happened to sub in a kindergarten class Thursday, and I spent much of my day, don't use your hands, use your words. And this is like halfway through the kindergarten year where I am still working with these kids to stop and think before they do. So I don't see how this curriculum, as it was printed, it really hit me wrong too much. I mean, I like the idea of treat your neighbor well. Yes, but pulling out um to me, pulling out a Bible story is not the way to do it. I read that's the only one I read deeply. I went to the Good Samaritan one and went, yeah, no, this is not a kindergarten level story. And I scanned quickly through the Kings and Queens and the King Solomon, and I was like, these are not kindergarten level stories, and this is not appropriate for this level. Yes, you want them to be nice to their friends. You want them to treat their friends gently. You're basically in kindergarten are teaching them to take turns, sit in a chair, how to use a pencil. I had a not great day Thursday when I was subbing in that kindergarten class because I had a very difficult student. So I don't see how you could do this curriculum when you're busy trying to teach a child to share and be nice. Yes, you can use some of these lessons, but the way these are printed, this is impractical.
Thank you. I'm on the golden rule here. Y'all still see the PDF, right? Yeah, okay. Several books of the Christian Bible describe a man who lived long ago, nearly 2,000 years, in a part of the world very far from here. That man was named Jesus. Not a kindergarten term, but are y'all familiar with the term proselytization? Proselytize? Okay. This is some of the foundational elements of proselytizing. And yes, the curriculum does not talk or have a call to action. There's no altar call in the curriculum, but it is laying a foundation of faith and in the formative minds of these impressionable young people. One of the books, I'll come right next to you, Linda. One of the books of the Bible describes Jesus giving a small talk. It was called a sermon. Again, sometimes it's hard enough to explain what a sermon is to adults. A sermon is a talk, like a lesson shared by a teacher, but the focus is on a religious or moral subject. Jesus talked about morals in his sermons, etc. And so I'm wondering, and I want you to put a pin in it for the moment, how you come to understand and embrace this idea as something your public educators, tax-paid people are teaching your kids if you are atheist, if you are not Christian, whether Hindu, Buddhist, Jewish, whatever the case may be, Wiccan, let's put that out there. I'm not one who says that I would be afraid for my child to learn about the Jewish faith, even as a Christian, as a son, as the child of a pastor, a Christian pastor. But it really matters on who's doing that teaching, how it's framed, and how it's implemented. Linda, you had your hand up, and I don't want to miss that.
No, I admit I have not read all this, but I'm assuming there are no other perspectives offered. There's not a Jewish or Muslim or any other perspectives offered on this. Is that correct? And
in the Golden Rule, let's see here. And in the Golden Rule, it's predominantly from that Christian perspective, even if it does say also in the Jewish Bible. There was a kind of a throwaway line there that talks about it also being in the Jewish Bible. But no, it's not bringing home the idea of that of where that idea might be. Now, there are other lessons where they do bring in some examples from Hindu, from Jewish, from Islam. However, they're also kind of peripheral, or they're kind of throwaway. Like here's the main lesson you see, that may be from a Christian perspective. There are elements like it in these other faith traditions, and let me give you examples of what that looks like. But we're going to come back around to kind of this predominant focus, which is of the Christian perspective. And so I hope that answers your question. In the chat here, Michelle wrote, we have so many Hindus in our community. I can't imagine how confused these kids would be. How does a Hindu child cope with, and Joan wrote, cope with such blatant Christian ideas? How about y'all? Michelle said, it said, Jesus who taught us what is right and wrong way to act. That's actually in the curriculum. Let me put that in that meeting. Jesus who taught.
Yeah, I think it was in the Golden Rule one, but I can't remember. But I was stunned. It was something like that. That might not be the exact words, but it was like Jesus who taught, this man Jesus who taught us the right and wrong way to act or something like that. And I was like, what in the?
Yeah. Carol.
Sorry. I did not read this ahead of time. I apologize because I'm shouldn't be commenting, but is this not their point, the ones that are promoting this curriculum, to have a predominantly Christian story told over and over again? Isn't that the point that they want to make?
Yeah, I think, obviously, I don't think there's anything covert here. And certainly when I sat in that presentation with Mike Morath, I was in a room full of Christian evangelical pastors from the Austin area. Which one of them didn't look like the others and have two thumbs? This guy. And so, but I also didn't hide that about myself either. And so, he, in his speech, he elevated it. He's like, this is what we're doing. There was nothing hidden there about the hidden agenda. He talked about how, there was some fairness to the other religions and balanced and this, that, and the other. But in my own research, mathematically, the predominant influence is focused and targeted on the Christian faith, and significantly more than in the lessons than what I would tell you that my child had going through elementary school. And so I could spend a lot of time on the Bluebonnet curriculum, and I encourage you to look at it. One of the, and I can't remember what lessons it is, but Martin Luther King Jr., when he wrote a letter from the Birmingham jail, he cited the prophet Daniel. And so in that Bluebonnet curriculum where it talks about a letter from the Birmingham jail, he actually, the curriculum actually goes into an in-depth Bible study on the prophet Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and so that you could understand where King was coming from and why he had that as a reference in his letter from the Birmingham jail. But let's see. So y'all keep an eye on the chat here. Marcella said, the same way my child copes with the civil cultism she's force-fed in. I'm sorry, do you want me to read that out loud, Marcelo? She's force-fed in school every day. Her parent goes over her homework and sees what might be antithetical to their beliefs and corrects their child. If they care enough, obviously parents can't handle everything because they aren't in the classroom. Michelle gave a citation, page 11. When Jesus talked about morals in his sermon, he was talking about the right and wrong way to act. Susan.
For me, the most alarming thing about this curriculum is the wording, because we wonder where tribalism comes from. We wonder why people get into these divisions on social media.
Yeah.
This is indoctrination of kindergartners about the right way to act or the wrong way to act. For me, it's there's an unconscious. I believe that the people who implemented this curriculum believe in their hearts that they are doing something good? I firmly disagree.
Good. And thank
Amen.
you. I don't, yeah, I don't disagree. And I thank you for sharing that. In interest of time, I do want to make sure we continue moving on. In part 2, the 10 Commandments in public classrooms. The 2 bits of homework that I gave you was 1, to watch a KXAN interview, and 2 is to read the Senate Bill 10 from that. By no means did I intend, or do I intend, to have you watch that KXAN report as some sort of self-aggrandizement. But I felt like, okay, well, this is where I got to intersect in with this debate. Did anybody do their homework? Were they able to watch that video in advance or to read the bill? Some of you did. Perfect. Use that as background because we're going to move in. Hold that in the background as I move into this next thing. If you haven't watched it, it's only 5 to 6 minutes. And then also the Senate Bill 10, it's really quite short. It's not all that long, but I give you the citation to it specifically because you need to see what the law is and what the law actually says, because that is what's going to lead us into this exercise that I am calling Spot the Differences. So let me share my screen. So in Spot the Differences, what I've done here is that everybody should, did I share the right screen? Are you seeing the Word document with the 2 side by side? Okay. There's a lot of details on technology in my head today, so I'm holding it together. As I was preparing for the interview with KXAN, I spent quite a bit of time doing what I think I have been taught, which is to think critically and to research, investigate, know what the hell you're talking about before you talk about it, and that for me also included Bible study. It's an area of expertise, and let's just get into it. So one of the things that I did is I wanted to look at the Spot the Differences exercise that I'm leading you through now, where in the bill, Senate Bill 10, they are using the King James Version. So I want to make sure that I'm also doing the side-by-side with the actual King James Version from the most commonly traditionally held version of King James, which is from the 1900s. Last time it was the commonly used translated English translation. There is a new King James Version, which has been made to read easier, so a few less these, thous, and thys, and forsakens, but by and large, the message of the King James Version is still there in it. So let's take a look. We want to do some careful reading. Compare the 2 versions of the 10 Commandments. Note what is present, what is absent, what has changed. It's not a biblical test. It's not a personal belief. It's just an exercise in observation and discernment. So the investigative questions I left for you are: what words, phrases, or sections are missing? What words have been changed or updated? What context is present in one and absent in the other? What editorial decisions appear to have been made from the King James Version? So did anybody take a look at this in advance so you don't have to hear me yap all the way through it? Did anybody do the compare and contrast in advance, the spot the differences? If not, then I can just jump into it. I see Linda, I see Marcel. Marcel, your head's nodding. I don't know if that meant that you looked at it in advance.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to give us a few things that you highlighted and noted? You're muted, buddy. You're muted, Marcelo.
Bill? Dang it. Sorry. So sorry, I was pulling it up.
Start over.
I haven't said anything yet. I was just telling you that I was pulling it up.
Oh, okay.
So for the Sabbath day, it excludes that you're supposed to work for 6 days a week, which I think people would be upset by. It says you shall not murder instead of you shall not kill, which is a better translation. I don't remember what the King James Version says because I was looking at NRSV and NRSV UE, but it says murder, not kill, which are two different things. It says slaves and not servants. It actually promotes the idea that you can own slaves because it also says that your slaves are going to or should follow the Sabbath and also recognize the Sabbath and doesn't condemn slavery. So it seems to be at least accepting of slavery, if not pro-slavery. And then there's some things like what was it in the first one, whenever it's talking about serving the Lord your God, it leaves out the entire part of I am a jealous God, I punish children for the iniquities of their parents, which most Protestant evangelicals don't like. They would leave that out most of the time because they think that people are responsible for their own actions.
Yeah, let me ask you more. So again, some of the things that are also challenging to explain to adults can be woefully difficult to explain to students any age between K through 12, is that the Ten Commandments are posted in two different books of the Bible, in Exodus as well as in Deuteronomy. And Marcelo, I'm wondering, when you were doing your compare and contrast, were you looking at the Exodus version or the Deuteronomy version?
I might have been looking at the Deuteronomy version.
Yeah, I think so. And that's okay. And again, a trained ear can hear the differences in what you're talking about, which again may make it really difficult for a teacher or a student or the family of those students to fully understand. The SB 10 language is from the Exodus chapter 20 passage of the Ten Commandments, and part of what I did here in putting those side by side, I wanted you to see that the green italics is what I highlight, or those are from me, and what was left, right? The black unitalics is the side by side line from Exodus 20 King James Version and SB 10, what they use. And so while they did not include what I put in green italics, there still would be differences between the black unitalics and the stuff that I put in there. Are y'all being able to see this okay? Because I want to go through a few things. Yeah. Okay. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. SB 10. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. But leaving out, I am basically what Marcelo was talking about. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And also in Deuteronomy, I'm a jealous God. Incredibly complicated to unpack. SB 10, thou shalt not make to thyself graven images. Let's go back to Marie's point earlier about the Samaritan. Just that sentence alone. What the heck is thou? What the heck is shalt, thyself? And what is a graven image? Like, kindergartners, this is, being posted in all of these classrooms. Like, these are vocabulary that folks don't encounter. But I digress. But when you look at the Exodus 20, it has all of this other, there it is, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of fathers upon children to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, by shewing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. I mean, how incredibly complex is this idea that needs unpacking? Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. The Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. What is Sabbath? I mean, I promise you, there are still adults that don't know what Sabbath is, even if they know definitively what the definition is. And then there's all this. Now, Marcel, in the Exodus version, they do not use the word slave. They do use manservant or maidservant. But and certainly in the NIV or other translations that are probably more accessible to the evangelical community, the NIV in particular, you are getting the word slave. You are not getting the word maidservant, manservant. And I think you would really need to get into the Hebrew and take a look about how best those words are used in the Hebrew. Honor thy father and thy mother, for thy days may be long upon the land. Da, 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 da. And let's get into thou shalt not kill, which, and again, I don't have Deuteronomy off the top of my head, but a lot of English translations do have the word murder, and kill and murder theologically are very different things. How about this one, y'all? For your kindergartners and first graders and second graders and third graders, thou shalt not commit adultery. Shall we explain this to Ramsey? I'm going to go with it.
You might already know, but that's probably not every kid.
Yeah, well, okay. All right. That's a hard pass. I didn't talk to my kid about that in elementary school. Not steal, sure. Not bear false witness against thy neighbor. You know, what is bearing false witness? And then, but this is the one where I really tried to hone in on. Let's take a look here. In SB 10, thou shalt not covet, covet's a hard one to explain, thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his cattle, nor anything else, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Now, here's some spot the differences that I want to make sure that I'm drawing attention to. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Yes, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Let's pause there. If we're leaning into the educational aspect of this, someone may be able to read that on a plain reading of, well, then it is okay to covet thy neighbor's husband. How I better understand this? Nor his manservant, nor his maidservant. I think trying to figure out what that is, but you can covet her manservant and her maid servant. That's fine. Nor his cattle or nor his ox. Now, why might SB 10 use the word cattle instead of ox? Are those, for one thing, are those two different animals, a cattle and an ox?
Yes.
Okay. So why might SB 10 use the word, why might the author of that make an editorial decision to use the word cattle and not ox?
Because this is Texas.
You're damn right this is Texas. I don't know if y'all see it. It says, God made, Jesus saved, and Texas raised. That's what my sign says. Absolutely
that way they could lump the ox and the ass under the general term cattle, and it covers everything, right? It just takes care of all of that.
I don't think so, sir.
You can't put the word ass on the wall without all the kids giggling. You used a bad word.
Oh yeah.
You're getting
put that in a
of me.
7th grade classroom and see what happens.
You're getting ahead of me, y'all. I'm still on cattle. I want to make sure you can, let's see, portrait lighting there. Now you can see my sign. God made, Jesus saved, Texas raised. Yeah, so it's okay. And really, I'm not mad at the author for making this editorial. Contextually, I get that. You know, a kid may not know what an ox is, but I can understand what a cattle is, right? I have Longhorn that live just a mile and a half over from me that we drive by as often as we can so we can see the Longhorn. Like, all right, like I get it. Okay. But they struck completely nor his ass. And if you've made an editorial decision to change ox to cattle, you could have made the editorial decision to change ass to donkey, correct? But we're cherry picking and we're making interpretive decisions as politicians, as legislators, not from a theological perspective, but for something else. I can't mention, I don't know why they chose to strike his ass from this SB 10, nor anything else that is thy neighbors. The other issue that I might have with this or quibble with this with regard, especially at the high school level, is the gendered use of the language here. When there are definitely teenagers who are understanding gender fluidity, and that this verse is so male centric. Does that exclude those who identify as female, or just there's so much here. So I got to stop there. I got to move on. I also go ahead, please.
There is so much context left out of what they're choosing to put on the wall that we in at least me in my years of Bible study have studied the context behind all of this, how it was male writers, so it's written from the male perspective, or as Marcella has put in the chat, women were property at the time this was penned, that it's but you can't put that in a poster on the wall, some of that context, because then you're combining church and state into a religious lesson in the public education classroom.
There you go. Yes, absolutely. And so then what does, at the end of the day, then what does posting this on the walls of a classroom accomplish? What educational value does this bring to the classroom? And I want you to try to think through the legislators. What educational value does this bring? Even if you got to invent something, what do you think?
The rules have been around for a really long time. There's a reason for rules. I mean, they're a basic set of rules, and we all have to live by some kind of rules to be a part of society. And these are some basic rules that have been around for a long time.
Good.
It's just one step closer to no more separation between, religion and the state. So it's just a small step for kids to be indoctrinated that this is the direction we're going. It's getting closer.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's educational, but it's like
I think what I hear you saying. Yeah, what I hear you saying, especially with the Bluebonnet curriculum, this is they're just making little easy on-ramps so that as time to your make an adult profession or this, that, and the other, good marketing and good branding, you recall what you see the most of, right? So, I know that I prefer watching Chevrolet commercials more than Ford. So when it comes time for me to buy an automobile, first in my brain recognition, first in my mind is going to go to Chevrolet. I've been that way since I was a youngster. Chevrolet's always done a great job. Ford commercials, they don't attract me. And so the more that we convey that and build these little easy on-ramps from the formative years on, the easier it is to sell what we're peddling.
We're boiling the frog. We're just
Sure,
turning
yeah.
the heat up just
And
slightly so that none of us. It's so hard to argue some of this stuff. Oh, you want your kids to kill? You want your kids to lie? We're just trying to help you. So it's just like this, a little dial, a little dig here, a little dig there.
Yeah. Why? And I want to ask this and then I'll move on. Why do y'all feel that, or why do you think that the debate about the Ten Commandments and public education settings, how is it different than the debate about the Ten Commandments being posted in our just centers of justice, like courtrooms and whatnot? How are those debates different? Or are they not?
A lot of the common law that our legal system derived from can be traced back to the Ten Commandments. I mean, there's a historical perspective. I'm not a lawyer, but my daughter is, so.
Yeah. Good.
Well, we're not forced to go down to the courthouse. The kids are forced to go into the school every single day.
Yeah. I mean, listen, some people are forced to go to the courthouse.
Well, I know, but as a general population, most kindergartners are not, or elementary school kids are not. And I don't see how it's different from posting Sharia law in Afghanistan or someplace like that. I don't. In fact, I think we're being generous when we attribute it to an educational purpose that's not about indoctrinating and training and educating people to be Christians.
Yeah.
So
I think that, go ahead, who's talking? Who's Joan? Was it Joan? Who was talking? Susan.
I actually wasn't talking, but I just wanted to insert that 30 years ago, the Republican platform really wasn't that different than the Democratic platform in many basic ways. What we have now, the buzzwords seem to be keep government out of our lives from the MAGA platform. And yet, we're looking at this curriculum of indoctrination and proselytization. I can only think that this is born out of fear. And my own faith has taught me that fear is the opposite of love. We could keep going there, but just something to think about.
Yeah, and add fear also drives us to seize power. I can minimize my fear when I'm in control, when I have the power. And yeah, Carol.
I'm just trying to go back a little bit to what we were looking at when you had it all before us, and it's hard for me to understand the lack of consistency of what they pulled out from the King James Version and what they put on the printed thing for the classroom. Because if they just wanted little chunks, thou shalt have no other God, thou shalt not lie, and then they get down to coveting and they lay out all this part. It just doesn't make sense to me of what was chosen to put on the cards to begin with.
Yeah, fair. And this is also why I wanted to include the public response. I'm moving on now. And the link that you can go read the 486, nearly 500 public comments that were submitted for the legislative reps to read in advance. That doesn't include the public testimony for the committee hearings and the various hearings. Those were just the ones that were written in advance. Marcelo? Oh, I still can't hear you for some reason, buddy.
Sorry. Can I also point out that they chose these 10 commandments as opposed to different sets of 10 commandments that are also in the Old Testament? And there's actually some that say these are 10 commandments where this doesn't. They're very, very different. So they chose these specifically.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and when an artist sculpts a sculpture, an artist has made a choice, has made decisions about what they're trying to convey in their art. And so when we have written a bill, there is something for which they are trying to convey. There's meaning behind it. There's an agenda, there's a purpose, etc. And so they've made choices. This isn't just like, willy-nilly spontaneity. They've made choices, and it is perplexing. It is, but I mean, it's also not covert. They gave you the playbook. back 20 years ago and to the predecessor of Project 2025 and also in Project 2025 document. There's nothing covert about this. They've laid it out there. When you look at the themes that come to us from the public comments, there's freedom of conscience, educational purpose, belonging, pluralism, religious integrity, power, and priorities. You see all these themes that come to us. And what I gave like a 45, 50-minute interview to KXAN, of which they use 70 seconds, maybe. And man, I brought great notes and I brought receipts, man. They didn't use all of it, which is fine. They highlighted and gave double the amount of time to the Moms for Liberty, which that's a whole nother thing. And I come to realize that the more rope they give you, the more easy it is to harm yourself. Some of the things I wanted to include in the handout, some of the things that I brought to the interview that may not have made it to air, which was academic and religious integrity, some of which I've already highlighted, the pedagogical appropriateness. Like I said, there's many things there that I wrote here. Posting material without explanation risks confusion, places teachers in an impossible position because they're not allowed to teach on it. They're not. Mrs. Robinson, I got a question about this poster on the classroom. I'm sorry, I can't answer that. You need to go ask your parents. That's just an impossible position. Faith formed by invitation, not coercion. When a state imposes religious material without context, it does a disservice both to people of faith and to those who do not share it. A weaponization of the sacred text is probably where my biggest issue came in. I said that this was framed theologically as a form of idolatry, using the Ten Commandments to justify themselves, using Scripture as an instrument of power. And I believe that itself is bearing false witness. Therefore, it violates one of the commandments which they're asserting we must post. And I think that it's not about that. It's about power. And so that's where I'm going to leave that. I want to move on to this last little bit about part 3, reading advocacy organizations critically. And I gave you 3 videos to watch. They're all from the Church Ambassador Network of Texas. The Church Ambassador Network has chapters in multiple states. So while I had you want to hone in on the network of Texas, this organization is across states. And again, there's nothing covert. They're telling you what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they're doing it. These 3 videos I asked you to watch is from the executive director here in Texas. And again, they're being very clear about what and why and the influence that they are gaining through their actions. Through the website scavenger hunt, there were 4 overall that I wanted you to look at. One was the Texas Church Ambassador Network of Texas. Another one was Texas Values. The 2 that probably get elevated the most, that you might hear about the most, is the Texas Public Policy Foundation and Moms for Liberty. The TPPF, a lot of times if you're seeing Karl Rove being interviewed by Fox Network, he's being interviewed off the patio of the TPPF with the Capitol building behind them. If you've never been to that facility and toured their agency, I don't know whether anybody in the door, but I got to tour it, and it's a very different place than places I normally go, and Moms for Liberty. And so I want to just kind of briefly get through some of this and just say that if you've got something that if y'all were able to look at some of these websites and you want to bring something forward, did anybody want to share anything? Did anybody have a chance to look at these in advance? Yeah, Susan?
Yeah, I watched all 3 of the videos, and to me, it's just sort of amazing that people can live in such a bubble that this language that's being used seems so antique to me. That's my only comment. I don't have a valid commentary on those videos.
Well, your commentary is valid. You just made it, and thank you for sharing it.
I'm
Okay.
about halfway through Catherine Stewart's book, and so watching the videos it makes sense. They are consistent with the story, the history that she's laid out in her book, and so this is just the latest version of the Christian nationalist movement, which has actually been going on almost since the beginning of the United States.
Thank you.
I watched.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I watched some of those videos, but I look at it through a lens of sociology and the pressure about people feeling they have completely lost control of the narratives of their own lives, and then trying to ram it down somebody else's throat so that they can feel like they have some control. And I mean, I grew up around that, so it's not news to me. But there's a lot of subtleties about how classrooms run. I remember my 7th grade English teacher was one of the most racist, bigoted human beings. And she was about 5 feet tall and wore really high heels. And I could still hear her say, never, 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 about this, that, or the other. And our schools weren't integrated back then, so she could get away with that stuff. And I guess the thing that bothers me even more than the literal reality of this is the fact that these people are trying to do these things to control what their children are going to learn and think. And the reality of it is that they're going to create children who in late adolescence rebel like crazy and don't want to have anything to do with that kind of thinking. And it's just going to backfire. That when you do it that way, it just doesn't work. When you do it the way that I think we're all sort of thinking about in terms of interpreting people's behavior and interpreting the meaning of Christ's teachings, and the fact that being Christian actually involves being benevolent towards people who don't see things the way that you see them, and trying to understand it, and trying to be able to discuss that. Anyway, that's all. I mean, it's just, it just strikes me as it's going to completely backfire on these people in 20 years.
I hope you're right. We can go home now if that's the case.
Wait, I am home.
Oh,
I
me
think
too.
you meant eternal home.
Me too.
Thank you. Let me move to closing. I wrote, across these exercises, a pattern begins to emerge. Formation happens quietly through curriculum, through law, through organized advocacy. Power rarely announces itself. It shows up when it is normalized. What is normalized, it shows up in what is left unexplained and who is assumed to belong. And that's the part I want y'all to think more about, is who is assumed to belong. None of what we have seen today requires us to abandon faith or to withdraw from public life, but instead invites us to a better question. What does it look like to bear Christian witness without coercion, to love our neighbors without insisting they become like us, and to protect both faith and freedom at the same time? That question will stay with us as we continue, because it is not just about schools, it is about the kind of people and communities we are being formed to become. Some of y'all have been doing the weekly reflection survey, and I am grateful for that. I want to encourage you to, if you need to spend some more time on these exercises today before doing it, great. But all of those comments from the reflections are helpful for us and our church leadership as we move out of this class and into other initiatives. So those are definitely important. Next week, God willing, and the creeks don't rise or the world doesn't freeze over, we will have Texas Freedom Network come and present to us. They're an agency, probably the Church Ambassador Network would say they're an agency like them, but just on the other side of the spectrum. That in some ways could be fair. And the ways that it is not fair is there isn't this motive to ensure that our laws and our societies are monotheistic, Christian, and strives to ensure that it's either interfaith, ecumenical, or provides more inclusion for those who generally are said to not belong. And so they're a fabulous agency I've been working with. I've been attending a class of theirs monthly for the last several months on public education. And I think they have, if you want to sign up for their newsletters, I look forward to that when I get their information each week. So they also put forward good call to actions, and they're always bringing the receipts, meaning if they're asking you to do something, they're showing you either articles that have been written or they're showing you the evidence of why they're calling for this type of action. So look forward to having them with us next week and for us to not be in isolation. I'm going to move us to close. For those of you who need to drop off, that's fine. I'm going to end up turning off the YouTube. And for those of you who need to stick around and decompress or debrief about this past week, I'm here for that as well. So let me pray. God of justice, we have listened, we have learned, and we pray now that you would guide us as we move from words into action. Bless our going out and our coming in. Amen. All right, friends, let me just turn off. Again, If some of you need to leave, I totally